Did you have a chance to look at the copy that we sent over?
Absolutely, and I loved it.
Oh, good.
I loved it. I thought it was incredibly... I mean, I thought I knew everything about the movie, and I was wrong.
Well, that is a high compliment, because I'll tell you, when I first started researching this and thinking, do I want to spend a couple of years of my life working on this book and working on this movie, I started to search around, and I found out that you were a fan of this movie, and I thought, if Guillermo likes it, then that's good enough for me. And that's one of the things that kicks me off into what makes me want to write this book. So I just have a couple of quick questions to ask you, if you don't mind.
Not at all, please.
When did you first become aware of The Devil's book and of Ken Russell? Or The Devil's movie, rather.
I really, it's funny because I became aware of Ken Russell through The Devils, and I read the book right after seeing the movie. I searched it. Unfortunately for me, it was in print in Spanish, The Demons of Ludon, and I used to love the movie. I saw it on a VHS, on those big clunky boxes that Warner Brothers used to put out on the early days of VHS, and it became a treasured possession, that thing. I wore it down, and there was a time when I was able, I have nothing left, but I was able to recite almost the entire movie's dialogue. and I read the book after, and it gave a new meaning to the movie. I loved. I started extrapolating stuff that was fascinating. Like, I love the idea that Aldous Huxley mentions the anal fistula that Richelieu had, that impeded his movement, and that he was mostly transported by acolytes everywhere, that he couldn't walk. And I thought Ken Russell did it beautifully with that wheelbarrow,
Yes.
It's a very smart juxtaposition, and obviously in Huxley's is a very tragic piece of biography, but what is great about Ken Russell is he is the most powerful man in France, and he is essentially unable to even walk. It's the ultimate perversity,
Yes, no, absolutely. And that's one of the things that is in the movie that people don't realize is historically accurate. And Ken has often said that this movie was plucked from history. If people are offended by it, then they're offended by history. And I always thought that was such an interesting thing to say and to put forth about this particular subject.
It is, and in a funny way, even the arrogance and the entitlement of modernity is so well portrayed. It's so well portrayed that medical science is arrogant in the movie. Political powers are arrogant in the movie, and ultimately they destroy not only the world, but what seems to be the only, or one of the few thinking men, that is accused of arrogance and is accused of communing with the devil, but is really a very touching character. Grandier is a very beautifully vulnerable human being, and that's why Oliver Reed is so perfect. Oliver Reed I always saw him like a living, breathing Auguste Rodin sculpture, like the epitome of humanity made flesh,
Right. Well, and it's his eyes. In this movie, he's got such great physicality and he's got such a presence, but it's his eyes for me in this movie that always grab me. You can't avoid his gaze. You have to look at him.
And he was a guy that in my opinion, had an incredible, almost vibration of emotion in his voice at all times, He had a timbre he had a timbre and a tremolo in his voice that always signaled huge emotion for me. You know, and the other thing that he did fantastic is the juxtaposition of a body of that incredible physicality and giving you the illusion of vulnerability. Right. You know, he did it in this movie, he did it on Curse of the Werewolves, and he did it in his best roles like A Woman in Love. You understood that this mountain of a man was vulnerable and emotional. You know, it's quite a singular screen presence he has.
I think so too, and I can't imagine anyone else certainly of that generation playing that role. If you think of, you know, the other actors that Ken Russell might have chosen from that pool, you have, you know, Alan Bates, Richard Harris, Richard Burton, you know, and I can't imagine anyone else playing that role.
No, because I think that you know, I say, by the way, that Oliver Reed is one of the best actors to sweat. You know,
yeah,
he's an incredible. When you see him perspire, it's you know, he has an incredible, eloquent sweat drop display. You know, you understand the turmoil better than ever. You know, and I think no one else conveyed the juxtaposition of power and fragility.
That's right. Now, what do you think of Vanessa Redgrave in this movie?
I think she's perfect, and in my opinion, is one of her probably best roles ever. Mm-hmm. And it's because she has just the exact touch, the thin lips, the sort of hysterical eyes, to be a very beautiful nun, you know, and Mother Joan of Angels is described in the book as a woman that had a very fair, beautiful, delicate face, you know, but was disfigured by the hump, you know, and I think Redgrave has this face that is at the same time beautiful and puritanical, you know, and she can also express incredible fires of desire, but she still has in her face, in her features, a certain sternness, you know, a certain steelness, you know. She's. I think there is not a single miscast in the movie. For me, it's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Well, just a couple of quick questions, because I know you're busy. Is it true that you watch at least part of the movie every week?
I watch, I used to. I watch it at least, now that the new DVD came out, I find myself that is true again. But for a while, I would watch it at least once every 30, 40 days. It's really a movie that I find has... There are three movies of Ken Russell that I adore. I love all of them, but that I adore are Woman in Love, The Devils, and The Savage Messiah.
Right.
For me, those are his top three, and I try to watch them as often as possible. You know, he was a singular mind, and I wish I had met him. I mean, I met him once in Telluride, but he was not very social.
Yeah, no. Near the end of his life, he was not feeling well, and he was not very social, which is too bad. Somebody asked me the other day, if you could have a time machine, and when would you go back to? And I had all sorts of images flash to my head, but I thought of Ken, and I thought, you know what? I would love to have met him in about just before all this, like just before he started making the documentaries for the BBC, when he was a photographer on the street and going in, because I just think he would have been a whirlwind to be around. You know, it would have been incredible.
He was a very singular mind and a singular eye, and he has such a powerful style that whether his movies hit or miss, in my mind is exclusively the beautiful alchemy between his style and the material. You know, like my fourth favorite movie of his, which is Mahler, comes close for me to the others, but it's not as powerful for me. But when he marries the material, and I think the supreme marriage of material are the top three, because they kind of articulate a credo of what he thinks life is. Woman in Love articulates an essential maleness and an essential male point of view. Savage Messiah is almost a manifest about how an artist has to be an iconoclast and how an artist has to be savage and indomitable. And then The Devils shows sort of the absolute insanity that it is to try to remain rational when the forces of time and history are against you. You know, I really think he was hugely influential for me, and his sense of composition, the way he made everything fall into place when it seemed impossible, I think is absolutely unique in cinema.
Do you think that his work, because of all that you've just said, do you think his work, and because we're talking about The Devil specifically, do you think those movies influenced you and influenced the way that you work today?
They do. I mean, one thing that is curious is I'm influenced more by his quiet moments than I am influenced by his gyrating camera, you know, like, or the crazier camera. But what he did that I think is fantastic, and I tried to, is that he sustained the marriage of things that seemed completely opposites, like water and oil. You know, by tone, by almost by the strength of his faith. You know, and he had such an overlaying tone over every material he touched that it pitched everything to marry together. If you saw those pieces of film individually, and I can't imagine seeing the dailies, there are moments of quote-unquote, I would say normalcy that are so high-pitched. The actors are reciting the dialogue at a burning pace, seemingly overacting. You know, the camera is zooming back and forth or sweeping across the frame. And yet, when those little mosaics of madness fit perfectly. Yeah. And then he always has the serenity of, and the confidence, rather, to snap back of those moments of great madness and show you moments of absolute serenity. And that has influenced the way I at least conceive things.
Yes, well, and he does it so beautifully in The Devils. And the final question is, I know, why do you think that this movie still enrages people? I mean, the DVD that just came out, the BFI version, is beautiful, but it still doesn't have all the scenes in the movie. And why do you think that people are still afraid of it? It's 40 years old. You know, we see things in the theaters now, we see things on television now that are outrageous. Why do you think this movie still gets people so?
Because I think that in many, many ways, you know, it's almost like a reversal of what Ken Russell said. He said that people in the past never think they are living in a historical time. Right. That they swear themselves completely modern, and that their atavisms and their hang-ups and their sort of how can I say, backwards ways become exposed by history. You know, you obviously can laugh and chuckle about the science exposed in the movie, right, which is as close to witchcraft as anything else. And then you can laugh and laugh about the fact that you can whip up a religious frenzy with just a few elements like that, But then you look at us, and we are still shocked at a piece of film.
Right.
We are still, in essence, with respect of religion, sadly, still very much in the Middle Ages. Our relationship with God and the universe for a majority of people is still one of complete verticality and blind, in the worst possible way, blind faith and atavisms and totemic beliefs and taboos and the idea that anyone can discuss, because to me the movie is both a spiritual and political, and in both instances is an incredibly subversive film, and in both instances we are still in the Middle Ages. But particularly the religious aspect. I mean, the fact that this movie still, to this day, after his death, cannot get properly released into the world, the way he saw it, the way he wanted it. I think actually, in a way, the world has taken a step backwards. If you think about the particular case of this movie, there is a character that is I don't think available socially to anyone anymore, which is a thinking censor. There is the thinking censorship that may not be honorable or may not be brave or may not be anything like that, but it at least was able to acknowledge the power of the film. Whereas now the film is viewed either with absolute devotion, like I have, or Mark Kermode has, or you have, or with almost animistic horror. I mean, I know people that hate the movie and have never seen it.
Right. And that's the thing. I mean, the idea of this movie enrages people so much. And I think that hopefully what my book will do, if those people would ever decide to read the book, is understand that the movie is so much more than just the scenes that inflame people, that it is a brave and beautiful piece of art from a filmmaker, the kinds of which we don't really have anymore.
Now, think about it exactly like that. Think about two things. One of the most religious, and I'm a lapsed Catholic, but one of the most religious and moving films about the life of Christ that I've ever seen, which is Passion of the Christ, the Scorsese movie. Mm-hmm. Was outraged the right-wing Catholics, and Christians, and when you see the movie, such an incredibly powerful statement of faith and such a monumental shrine to the man. And this movie actually shows you the true power of serenity and faith in Grandier. The intimate moment of communion that he has, apart from the maddening noise of the world, that moment of serenity that is perfectly juxtaposed with the hysterics, It's a moment that, if anything, speaks volumes of what a true Catholic or Christian should be able to do, And the second thing that is amazing to me is this movie is essentially showing you centuries ago, showing you exactly something that is still enacted in the great social changes, which is the shock doctrine. Right. They are doing essentially the shock doctrine through the exorcism. Yeah. Let us distract the masses with something really, really big that we create and orchestrate in order to, while they're looking that way, we can pass this huge damaging social change measure, you know? And they will not notice because they will be so happy to have witnessed the ending of something so bad and so you know, it's amazing is that Naomi Klein would be absolutely in awe of Richelieu.
That's true. It's true.
So what I'm trying to say is, if you need any more proof that we're still in the Middle Ages, you need to look no further, you know. And by the way, we can talk if you want to for another good 20 minutes because I'm on the way home.
Oh, are you? Okay. Oh, good. I just I didn't want to keep you and. No.
I love the book and.
This movie became an obsession for me. I was obsessive about it before I started to write the book. But then when I started to write the book and I started to track down all the actors and, you know, the injustice of the censorship and the way that this movie was treated, the way that Ken Russell was treated afterwards, that came through from all the actors like Marie Melvin, who plays Father Mignon, and Judith Paris, who plays Sister Agnes, really struck me that these people were deeply wounded by this because they really thought that they were making a movie at the time that was important and of its time as much as a historical document, and yet it wasn't perceived that way. So hearing you talk about this as such a fan is incredible for me because, you know, there's a small community of people out here who love this movie, and I hope to expand that community a little bit.
Well, I think that this is the perfect time because I think that I do believe Ken Russell was a filmmaker who was neglected, you know, who was savagely neglected by the way by a lot of the film community who seem to think his films are dated, and a lot of them aren't. Some of them are, but a lot of them aren't.
Right.
You know, and I think he, you know, not that it mattered to him because fortunately he was an iconoclast and he was an enfant terrible, you know, and he was a rebel. So he didn't really needed the accolades that much, but he needed financing, and he needed distribution, and he needed production, and all those things were terribly neglected to him. In a way, I find in a very different type of body of work, but I find the same type of mythology has hit Terry Gilliam, you know?
Yeah. And is someone, Terry, you know, Terry, I think is like Ken, is someone who has been tarred with this brush that they say, okay, you know what, their movies are, you know, they're too difficult to work with. They have their own way of doing things, and we don't want to work with them. And somehow these guys, because they are real iconoclasts, don't really seem to. I mean, I think Terry wants to work more within the system, but there's just something within him that can't do it. And maybe I'm wrong about that, but that's how I kind of perceive it.
No, I think that he actually is a filmmaker that is fiscally very responsible, incredibly mindful, incredibly good, and is the myth. Is really a revenge handed from a lineage that started with the regime at Universal at that time, you know? Right. And I think Ken Russell really ruffled the feathers of a lot of the religious establishment, B, the social conservatives, and C, a body of critics that were frankly retrograde, you know, that were looking for a different system of values than the ones that Ken Russell was able to articulate. But his let me put it this way: his body of work is enviable, enviable, and the cohesiveness of his work is absolutely enviable. You know.
Well, do you think that a movie like this could get made today?
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all, for one reason. For one reason only. the story could be told, but the budget, it's a big movie.
Right.
It's a movie that has some of the most complex, beautiful, and elaborate sets by Derek Jarman that occupy a large portion of the studio. That now, if you wanted to build sets that size and give the scale and the almost monolithic nature of the city to the film, you couldn't do it because you would need a budget, and there's no financing entity in the world today that would take a risk like that, and it only makes us much more of a sadder culture, you know?
Right. Well, it's interesting. I think it was Joe Dante that told me, he said, a movie like this could only get made today if you could find an insane billionaire that would give you the money.
Yeah,
so
and
that's the only way.
There are few and far apart of those.
That's right. That's right. Well, I just met Roger Christian. Did you meet him while you were living in Toronto, or while you were here shooting Pacific?
No. I'm a big fan of The Sender.
Right. Well, it's his film, and of course, he designed, was art director on Star Wars and Alien and things.
Alien, yeah.
Yeah, and he lives here, and he knew Ken very well. He was the art director on Mahler, and he told me, just about walking onto the set. He was on the set of The Devils, and he said, just standing in the middle of this, they built this town, and he said it was overwhelming just being in the middle of it as an onlooker at Pinewood. He said he really felt completely taken over by the sets that Derek Jarman had built. And I think it's incredible that this was the first movie that Jarman had ever designed. And I'm not sure if it's that thing where he was naive, so he didn't know any better, so he went as big as he possibly could and went as outrageous as he possibly could, or what. But the movie just has a singular look, and it is such a beautiful thing. And it's a collaboration between Ken and Derek Jarman, but I think Derek Jarman is at least, 50% responsible for the success of this film, the visual success of it anyway.
I agree, and I think nevertheless, those sets are incredible, but funny enough, I'll tell you this as a director, they are sets that are not easy to photograph. They are sets from every aspect. First of all, the fact that white is incredibly hard to work with black and white and exposed to the human faces. The exposition,
right.
Simply the fact that if you don't use the right compositions and the right size of wide-angle lenses, you're not going to get the majesty of those sets. So I really believe it was a very fleeting but happy marriage of two geniuses,
Right. That's interesting. I hadn't thought of that because, of course, it's all white, so you try and light that. And
well, if you're lighting white and you're lighting black and you're lighting the human faces, and you have things standing next to each other that are several stops apart from each other. It's a real look. The cinematography is breathtaking, and I've strived all my life to have an opening shot as powerful as the opening shot of The Devils, and I think that in cinematic terms, beyond the set, what is great is the stark elegance of Jarman. Gives a certain almost I would say is a certain gravitas to the things that are happening on screen that would be absent have you had a more realistic production designer, for example.
Yeah, I think if you had a more realistic production design or a busier production design, if there was more going on behind, because although the sets are massive and they are majestic, they're all white, and so for me, it forces my eye to the actors.
Yeah, it's literally almost like it tells you these are the characters standing in their epoch, in their time, and you accept the surroundings, but you can just throw yourself into the characters.
Yes. Now, you said that you think that all the characters are perfectly cast. I particularly love Dudley Sutton as Labyrinth. I think he is one of the great villains.
It's amazing, and the fact his face is so expressive, and his common man pessimist, is really one of the great villains. And Father Barret, a lot of people used to complain about the like John Lennon glasses and the Andy Warhol type of character. And I thought, no, that's exactly right. That's the only way we can relate to. There's a thing that happens that people look at religious painting, from the Renaissance, and they go, okay, a lot of them are in medieval times. A lot of them are really people standing in contemporary clothes.
Right.
In the paintings, they are not people in period garb. But when we look at them from the 20th century, of course, everything, the past is the past is the past. But that's the brilliance of Ken Russell. He's doing sort of bringing these contemporary culture touches to make these all more accessible.
Well, and I think that's the in some ways that's our doorway into the story, because I often think that because you have a story that is so big and there's so much going on, it's complicated. There's a lot of things happening. There's a lot of religious and political overtones to everything. You have the nuns and so for a viewer to be overwhelmed, I think you have to have very human characters to be able to use those as the entry point for the viewer to get into the story and really get inside it. If you had,
but can I tell you something about? That's exactly what I'm saying about Father Barret. Mm-hmm. The brilliant thing is when you watch it and you realize he looks like a rock star or he looks like Andy Warhol or John Lennon. It's because it's a concert.
Right.
The exorcisms were it was showtime.
Right. It was like a rock show.
It's like a rock show, and the hysteria of the audience and the nuns is the same hysteria that you would have in 1970s at the height of a huge concert. The nudity, the frenzy, the lasciviousness, the freedom, the madness, exploding there. It's a really interesting juxtaposition that he puts this rock star priest in the middle of this thing,
Well, I thought the first time I saw the movie, I thought Mick Jagger when I saw him.
Yeah. And he has the strut of a rock star, and he has the delivery of a rock star, and the sort of hair and lips of a rock star.
Yeah, he does. Now, what do you think about the burning at the stake scene? Because I know a number of people that I've talked to who haven't seen the movie for a very long time. The scene that they always come back to, the scene that has come up time after time, is the burning at the stake scene. That is the scene that seems to stay in people's minds because, of course, not a lot of people have seen the Rape of Christ scene. So the burning at the stake is the next thing. What's your take on that scene? Because for me, I did the research. I looked at, and I can't find many other examples in movie history of that being portrayed on screen in that kind of vividness before The Devils.
No, I would agree with you because what the devil does is it really shows you not only the stake, but breaking his feet and legs.
Yeah.
Is really the excruciating via crucis that he lived through. He becomes a martyr. He becomes I would not say a Messiah because he really doesn't save anyone. But is Jesus being crucified by the Romans? By being judged in a Roman court and being taken into a crucifixion, and you have to do. It becomes, in other words, it becomes a passion play.
Right.
And in order for it to become a passion play and show you that these very saintly people are in essence crucifying a saint. Not a saint in the moral sense, but certainly a Messiah. A man that had a message. And in the name of another Messiah, they are crucifying another one. And the fact that one of the essential things in the narrative of Jesus is the minute description of the torture.
Right.
Is the minute detail of the forensic nature of his suffering. And I think that the great difference that is very shocking at the end between Jesus and Grandier is the blackened bones.
Yeah.
The blackened bones are such a brutal, concrete, material reminder that this is not just a tragedy of the spirit, it's a tragedy of the material world. And the perfect rhythmic, symphonic marriage of his blackened bones and the destruction of the white wall is utterly fascinating to me, because the movie has utilized those two colors throughout the film, and the coda to those colors is the bone used as a dildo, and the blackened bones in contrast with the destructive white walls. It's beyond meaning, and it's just pure, sheer artistic gesture. It's amazing.
Well, it is, and when you say it's beyond meaning, I get that. I think what it has always meant to me was that it created a feeling within me that I'm not sure that I completely could put my finger on what it was.
But the fact that one of the bones is to be used as a dildo,
yeah,
is absolutely, it shows you in many ways the absolutely sterile, necrophiliac nature of the passion of Mother John of Angels. It's truly, it's rarely, the word genius is so overused, and it's used in connection with, most of the time, overrated, evil, and this and that. But Ken Russell and the Devils is sheer genius.
Do you think, because the word masterpiece is overused as well, I've been calling this movie a masterpiece. I think this is, I know it's in your top 3. I think this is Ken Russell's masterpiece. Do you think that's going too far?
No, I would agree with you. I would agree with you because the other two that I love, which are Woman in Love and Savage Messiah, have somewhat a more minor tone. I think tonally, this is his grand work. Tonally, this is his grand masterwork. It's a movie that is ambitious, symphonic, and in my opinion, absolutely perfect.
And absolutely perfect with or without the deleted scenes, with the rape of Christ, and because I think it works either way. I think it's more powerful with them.
think that it affected me for the rest of my life in its original form. So I think it's a masterpiece either way.